Widely regarded as one of the best historical fiction movies of all time, Titanic, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, debuted in theaters on December 19th, 1997. Based on the real-life tragedy of the 1912 sinking of the Titanic ship, Titanic the movie grossed over $2 billion worldwide, bringing the story of star-crossed lovers Jack and Rose into the homes of hundreds of thousands of viewers. The film is so popular that according to one poll, over 85% of all American adults have seen Titanic at least once during their lifetimes. Besides cementing James Cameron as a director of blockbuster hits, the film would go on to win a total of 11 Academy Awards, 2 Golden Globes, and countless miscellaneous awards for music, editing, set design, costume design, and more. It also broke several Guinness World Records, including most Oscar nominations received by a film, most Oscars won by a film, longest cinematic release, first movie to gross $1 billion, first movie to gross $2 billion, and highest grossing historical epic of all time. But even though the tale of Titanic was a certified smash hit seen around the world, very few people have ever heard of the behind-the-scenes scandals that occurred during its filming, including possibly one of the weirdest movie mysteries ever, namely the intentional poisoning of 80 cast and crew members by way of PCP-laced seafood soup. Join us on this week's episode of Let's Get Haunted as we devour and then vomit back up a drug-laden movie mystery for the ages, the PCP Chowder Conspiracy of Titanic, the movie.
Welcome back to Let's Get Haunted
with your hosts,
Nat Strawn
and Allie. Welcome back, Haunties, to episode 223 of Let's Get Haunted. We are your ghost hosts, Allie and Nat, but today we are your haunters. You are our hauntees, and we're all here to get haunted. But before we can get into that, it's time for a 5 to 10 minute segment of something we like to call personal hauntings. Nat, can you explain to anyone new to our show what personal hauntings are?
Personal hauntings are where Allie and I dive in to our own personal lives to tell you the lore, to give you the tea so that you can not only feel better about your own life, but you can also make 2 new friends. Now, if that does not interest you at all, valid, not really, but Allie says that, so I feel like I have to say that. It is not valid, but you can open up the show notes.
That's right. And for those of you who don't know, we are filming all of our episodes this season. They used to be audio only. Now they're audio and video. So if you would like to watch on YouTube, you can head over to our YouTube channel, which is just Let's Get Haunted. Literally, all you have to do is type that into your search bar. We will pop right up. YouTube has this really cool thing called chapters, which also Spotify is now doing. So you can just open the chapters section and skip to the chapter that comes after personal hauntings and skip all of this mess. But speaking of mess, Nat has told me that she has a very juicy personal haunting available for us today, and I am fucking pumped. This is all I've been able to think about all day.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah, this is crazy. But before we do that, I just want to talk about, I'm peacocking right now. Can you see that I am peacocking, Allie?
What does that mean?
Peacocking? You don't know what peacocking means?
Showing off?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. It's like a tactic taught by the guy who wrote a novel called The Game. Ever heard of it?
Are you peacocking because you're wearing fake glasses?
Yeah, my birthday's this weekend, so I went and got a facial today. And then I didn't want to put makeup on my face because I didn't want it to clog my pores because I was like hoping that even though I fucked up, by the time my birthday is like in a couple days, it'll be fine. So I'm just like letting it breathe right now. And then I'm wearing these big fake glasses on top to kind of like distract away from. See, isn't it kind of working for me?
It really is. Honestly, that makes a lot of sense. I've heard that before. Like, supposedly celebrities that get work done, they change their hair right before they go under the knife so that when they come out, in public and they get papped, people will be like, oh, wow, there's something different about them. But they did used to be blonde with no bangs, and now they're a redhead with a perm. Oh, it must just be the haircut when really they've had a nose job. And we learned on an episode many moons ago that we never shut up about that the US government discovered that in order to combat psychic spies using their psychic abilities to figure out passwords and codes and locations of secret shit, the most effective way to stop it is with distraction. And so if you have some distracting accessories on, I think everyone's psychic eye is going to be bamboozled.
So now we're going into the personal hauntings. Okay, yesterday, my husband's like, some guy came to our house asking to speak with the previous owner because the previous owner is a CIA agent. And he said not to tell anyone. He was like, please get me his phone number, but also don't tell anyone about this, which fucking red flag. If anyone ever says, like, do not tell anyone.
Sir, immediately we are broadcasting this to all of our listeners. So you came to the wrong fucking house.
I know. Okay. So then I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, that's all the information I have for you. Like, the guy just showed up. And I was like, what do you mean showed up? Like, what kind of car was he driving? And he was like, he didn't have a car. And then I was like, what do you mean? And so he pulled up like our like cameras, like the little cameras outside the house, and was showing me. And it's just a guy walks up in a white t-shirt. He walks up, he rings the doorbell, and then he like presumably walks super far away because he's like paranoid. I don't know. He didn't just like wait by the door, right? And then my husband comes to the door and is like, can I help you? And the guy's like, yeah, I need to talk to, I'm going to change the names here. I need to talk to Bob, the CIA agent. And we're like, huh? Because Bob is the name of the guy who lived at this house before we bought it. My husband is like, look, man, I don't know him. You know, we don't have any way to contact him or whatever. And the guy's like, it's very important that I get Bob's phone number. I need his contact information. And we're like, we weren't friends with the guy. Like, we just bought a house from them. Like, I don't know. Like, we got it through the realtor. Like, there was no personal exchange between Bob and us. So we don't really know the guy. Like, there's no way. And then he's like, okay, I'll come back when you get it. And so we were just like,
now,
okay.
does this, I'm going to stop you right there. Does this not sound just like a guy on a bunch of drugs trying to find a drug dealer who told him that he was a CIA agent?
I mean, it could be. I don't know. But then here's the weird part about it is that while this guy is talking to us, after he leaves or whatever, he just like walks into the distance like a fucking magician and like evaporates. A cop car drives by. I was like, well, are the cops following him? And so the guy's like, kind of like backs away and is like, he's like, well, I live in the neighborhood. I'm an old friend of Bob's, I just need to talk to him. And then my husband's like, well, what's your address? And the guy's like, I don't want to tell you. And he's like, okay, I'll be back. I'll come back tomorrow and get the phone number from you. And my husband's like, don't do that. And the guy just like disappears. Okay. And so we were like, that's really weird. Now, unbeknownst to this guy, I think I talked about this on the podcast before. Bob is actually like a working actor, not an A-list actor, not anyone like people would know by name, but this is Atlanta. We have like a small film industry here, whatever. So one time after we got this house, a package came for Bob, but I didn't know it was for Bob. So I just saw this package and I like a brown nondescript package and I just opened it up. And then I saw that it was like a super nice, like pelican case, like engraved, and it said like 100 on the outside with like Tyler Perry's 100th episode celebration or something like that. And so then I like looked at the guy's name on the thing and it said, Bob X. And so then I went on Instagram, I typed in Bob X, and what do you know? The guy comes up, I DM him, and I'm like, hey, here's the deal. I send him a picture of it. I'm like, we live at your old address. Like, I wasn't being creepy. I just saw a box, opened it. Seems important. If you want it, like, come pick it up and I'll leave it outside for you. And the guy was really cool. He was like, no, it's cool, whatever. Came and got it. Never talked to him again, whatever. Now, fast forward, it's been like 2 years since that happened. And so then I reached out to him yesterday and I like sent him a screenshot of the guy who came up. Yeah, because I was like, hey, man, I'm really sorry to bother you. Do you know this guy? Because he came up asking for Bob, presumably you. And he was like, yeah, that's super weird. I don't know that guy. And I don't know. Okay.
Oh, shit.
Now, fast forward to today. The guy fucking shows up, knocks on the door.
Again?
And I have a video. Okay, I'm sending you the video right now.
Oh, my God. Okay, wait. This is very juicy, guys. It's been a while since we've had some legit mystery tea in our lives, so I am so ready for this.
So I get out my phone. I have a baby in my hands. I don't know how crazy is this. Is this guy just gonna throw a fucking grenade into our house because he's like, "You work for the CIA and the people are in the walls." I don't know. So I was like, "What do I do?" And my husband just goes up to the door, and I am kind of standing in the background because I'm like, no one's gonna shoot if there's a woman and a baby there, right?
I'm clicking on the video. I'm playing.
Okay, play it. Play the volume.
Yeah, I don't know how to get in touch with the guy, man. No.
Myself. See, sometimes you can't go to those places because they know. But I'm gonna give you some good advice. Don't share with anybody what I told you. It's for our own good because sometimes the good guys are listening and sometimes the bad guys are listening to our phones. Okay?
Cool.
Keep that between us. Okay?
Yeah.
Take care, man.
Yeah.
That is insane. So for those of you who couldn't hear, I'll throw this up on screen. For those who couldn't hear, the guy was like, hey, yeah, just, keep it between us. Keep what I told you between us about this guy because sometimes the good guys are listening and sometimes the bad guys are listening and you never know who's listening. And then Cody, Nat's husband, was just like, okay.
And then he just walked away. He just walked, and our neighborhood's not drivable. You guys, I live kind of out in the sticks. There's no sidewalks. And so it was very strange that he just walked off of the property. And so then I was being kind of nosy, and then I was like, well, I'm just gonna drive down the street and see where he went. Why not, right? He was like a fucking robot. He walked up to a house 2 houses away from us. I've never talked to the person who lives 2 houses away from us, so I don't know if he actually lives there or not. And then he just goes and stands in the driveway and turns 180 degrees. So he's facing the house with his back to the street in the middle of the driveway. And I was like, maybe he's think he knows that I'm following him or something, and this isn't really his house. And he's
he can sense someone's tailing him because of his training with the CIA.
Literally. And so, yeah, then I just drove by. So either he lives in that house or he doesn't. But what do you mean? What do you mean the bad guys are listening? Who was the FBI agent? I wanted to go get an interview with him and be like, sir, tell me everything.
Part of me thinks this is a victim of MK Ultra that was brainwashed by the CIA, has been slowly regaining his memory and remembers your house for whatever reason. Oh, yeah. And maybe the guy that's an actor really was with the CIA. The logical side of my brain says this is a stalker who really likes Tyler Perry, saw this guy on whatever he was on, did a bunch of Google searching, figured out where he lived, and thinks that Jesus is talking to him through the meteors in the sky and telling him that he needs to warn the guy that used to live there about something. Because you and I have had people before who just send us really unhinged emails that are like, why aren't you talking to me? I specifically told Jupiter to beam a blue light of orgasmic cookie dough into Allie's window last night. And I know she received it because the alien bots told me she did and she didn't say anything. Fuck you guys. So I don't know. We've seen it all. You've had a legitimate person that was obsessed with you that legal action had to be taken, but we've also had people that just send strange emails about how they're beaming cookie dough into my brain. So I don't know.
Yeah, you guys, that is my personal haunting for the week. Super weird. And also, is that guy just walking around our neighborhood? I don't know.
I don't know, man. It's
also,
such a strange
is Tyler
time.
Perry in a psyop for the government?
Man, if you guys have any ideas, leave your most unhinged conspiracy theory about what the fuck this guy was up to in the comments below. If you want to, you can leave your unhinged theory and your logical theory, and then I'm sure it's somewhere in the middle. Maybe that guy is an alien. That's the middle ground to me. The middle ground to me is that really was a cyborg robot alien.
Yeah, that's the normie explanation.
Yeah. I know we're supposed to appreciate all animals and insects here on Earth, but there's one bug that I just can't get behind. Mosquitoes. Mosquitoes suck. And depending on where you live in the world, they can also be dangerous, transporting illnesses like malaria, dengue, West Nile virus, Zika, and probably more, but that's all I can think of right now off the top of my head. Fortunately, the place I live in right now doesn't really have them, but when I travel to places that do, mosquitoes flock to me like I am the Bet's sphere. sphere, and they are the mayonnaise lid that Antoine Betts could not get off of the Betts sphere. Hopefully you've already listened to that episode, but if not, spoiler alert, aliens are real and they like spheres. But back to mosquitoes. I hate them. I wish I could punch every mosquito personally in the face, call CPS on them, fuck their wives, frame them for murder, and shoot them off in a rocket to space with Katy Perry. But alas, that's not the world we live in. Luckily, that's where this week's sponsor comes in. BZIGO Iris, your smart home mosquito detector. BZIGO Iris is a cutting-edge device that uses computer vision and AI to detect, track, and pinpoint mosquitoes in real time. No more guessing, no more swatting at thin air, just a simple, precise way to finally take control of your space. BZIGO's advanced computer vision system scans your space 24/7, detecting mosquitoes instantly. Once a mosquito lands, BZIGO uses an eye-safe laser to pinpoint its exact location. Get real-time notifications via the BZIGO app so you can act fast whether you're in the room or not. It works in total darkness using infrared technology, has no need for toxic sprays or plugins, just smart technology protecting your home. Stop losing sleep over mosquitoes. Take back your nights with BZIGO. Go to bzigo.com/discount/LGH and save 10% off. That's BZIGO, spelled BZIGO.com/discount/LGH, and use the code LGH to get 10% off. Say bye to itchy bites and sleepless nights. Thank you, BZIGO, for sponsoring this week's episode. And now back to your regularly scheduled haunting. All right, here we go. In 1912, the famed ocean liner named Titanic sank into the ocean after hitting an iceberg. What resulted was nothing short of a Titanic tragedy, one that resulted in the deaths of over 1,500 passengers. Some passengers sank with the ship itself, some died of hypothermia or drowned while struggling to tread water in the choppy North Atlantic waves, and of the 20 lifeboats filled with survivors who did manage to make it off the ship in time, only 13 of those lifeboats were ever recovered, meaning the unlucky survivors floating in the other 7 were lost at sea and never seen again. Even before the age of social media and internet, the Titanic's fate would go viral, resulting in a global media frenzy the likes of which had never been seen before. Branded the worst peacetime maritime disaster in history, and considered by some to be the very first international news story, sensational headlines would soon be splashed across major newspapers with bolded letters that read, "Titanic sinks, thousands die." Perhaps most chilling of all, as the last light inside the massive 882-foot-long Titanic ship slowly sank beneath the waves, survivors were left alone in pitch-black darkness, with nothing but the anguished screams of their fellow passengers to occupy their minds. Survivors tried to pick up the pieces of their lives, some with more success than others. Many had lost coworkers, friends, children, even spouses in the tragedy. And for some, the trauma of survival was just too much to bear, with at least 15 passengers later dying by suicide. A 9-year-old survivor named Frankie Goldsmith would later say that the screams of the Titanic passengers falling into the water still haunted him throughout his lifetime. In his memoirs, he recalled that, quote, "The sound of people drowning is something I cannot describe to you, and neither can anyone else. It is the most dreadful sound, and then there is dreadful silence that follows it," end quote. He and his mother would eventually relocate to Detroit, living next to Navin Field, where the baseball team the Detroit Tigers played. Quote, "The field was a scary place to me for a long time. Every time I heard the collected voices of the crowd cheering, I was reminded of the screams from the people who were in the water," end quote. Another survivor, a man named Archibald Gracie, described the sinking of the Titanic as follows, quote, "There arose to the sky the most horrible sounds ever heard by mortal man, except by those of us who survived this terrible tragedy. The agonizing cries of death from over 1,000 throats, the wails and groans of the suffering, the shrieks of the terror-stricken, and the awful gaspings for breath of those in the last throes of drowning none of us will ever forget to our dying day. Help, help, boat ahoy, and my God, were the heart-rending cries and shrieks of men which floated to us over the surface of the dark waters continuously for the next hour. But as time went on, growing weaker and weaker until they died out entirely. End quote. What was left of the ship's carcass eventually settled 2.4 miles down on the ocean floor. Snapped in half, these decaying remains would eventually be found in 1985 by a joint French-American expedition led by Robert Ballard and Jean-Louis Michel. The discovery of the Titanic ship, located about 350 miles off the coast of Canada, was just as publicized as the tragedy itself over 70 years prior. It had taken so long to find the ship in part because its distress call gave inaccurate coordinates during its sinking, but also because the technology to venture that deep underwater hadn't been developed until the 70s. As underwater explorers, Ballard and Michel remotely navigated their Argo submersible into the dark North Atlantic waters and the biofilm-covered wreckage came into view, the expedition's crew cheered with joy. As they continued to explore the wreck, though, those cheers quickly turned to somber reverence as the submersible spotlight scanned over discarded clothing and shoes, likely once worn by passengers whose bodies and bones had slowly disintegrated over the decades until nothing was left but silk-covered boots, belts, and ripped cloth. Footage of the Titanic from the submersible aired on CBS News the very next day, and newspapers around the world published headlines like, "Titanic Grave Found at Last."
Wow. I feel like that is probably what bothers me about the Titanic thing, is that it's literally just like us gawking, And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I gawk the fuck out of shit all the time. And I feel like that's part of human nature. It's just like, wow, I've never seen this. And so this is very interesting to me. And it's like, it's just like a curiosity, like a morbid curiosity. And I see it in my kid too, because like YouTube Kids, he'll be watching stuff and there's like weird freaks who insert like kind of creepy stuff, like Skibbity Toilet is creepy. It's like, why is that a kid's thing? And all of the kids are so interested in it because it looks unlike anything they've ever seen before. I feel like that's part of the Titanic thing, is like, I'm so interested in, I want to see a pair of boots with a buckle on top of them and picture that there was a guy standing there and then he evaporated and all the clothes fell down.
I just sent you some photos of, actually only one photo, of a shoe down at the bottom of the ocean in the Titanic wreckage.
Wow. Oh my God. See, this is so interesting to me. For those of us who are mentally ill and interested in horses and equestrian things, these literally look like paddock boots. To everyone else, these are like kind of like a cute combat boot looking thing. Like it has like a little heel on it. I mean, it's exactly what you would think if you were watching like a 20th century character play or something. It's like the character boots. Oh, wow, this one's really cool. She's just sent me a picture of like two, like, looks like this boots that SpongeBob wears, like the boots
Squeaky
that, like,
boots.
Yeah, where they're like, it looks like that on their side, but it's super creepy because you can see the outline of like a person laying down that's just like evaporated.
But yeah, it is very eerie, but also interesting. And I think that comes across really clearly, this human need to understand tragedy and to see tragedy with our own eyes. But then as soon as you do, it's like this wave of regret and reverence that often comes right after. For example, if I'm in traffic and I'm like super pissed off because I'm like, why the fuck is there traffic here? And then as soon as you go by whatever accident there is, it's like, okay, you turn your head because you're like, well, I've been waiting in traffic for this long. Like, what happened? And then as soon as you see like a motorcycle that's down or like an ambulance pulling away, at least for me, I immediately feel so bad and guilty and like, why was I complaining that there was traffic? Like, this is somebody's worst day. And I do think that was part of the feeling that this expedition to find the Titanic was feeling, because on one hand, it was the most exciting day ever for them because they had spent so much money and time trying to find the Titanic. Like I said, part of the problem of why it was so difficult to find is because when it was going down, there was a guy at the radio that was supposed to be sending coordinates and he had sent the wrong coordinates for whatever reason. And so later when people over the years have tried to find it, it was really difficult because it's not where it said it went down. And then, of course, there's things like drift that happens as something is sinking. And it was really fucking deep. So they invested a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of research into trying to find the Titanic. And they find it. And it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is, like the pinnacle of our life's work has been trying to find this, and we found it. And then the spotlight is sweeping over different areas of the ship, and they're like, oh my God, that is the disintegrated remains of what used to be a person, like just empty clothing, as if someone's just been zapped away out of the universe. Like it's crazy, and it's unsettling, and it's very, very wild. And there is like a call that some people have, usually it's explorers, that I personally don't understand. Like, I don't want to go down to the bottom of the ocean to look at the Titanic. I'll wait it out and I'll look at whatever footage somebody else publishes. But for some people, they really, really want to go to these places that are not well traveled, that are really dangerous. We saw that with the Titan sub that imploded trying to go down to the Titanic. And it is very interesting to think about why it is that some people have that call. Why do we as humans like to gawk at tragedy as well? I don't know, but it's a psychological reality.
Maybe it was like the money behind it. Like I would have to assume whoever found all this stuff made a bunch of money off of it. And it kind of reminds me of, did you hear about the guy who like accidentally threw away his Bitcoin wallet, spent like 12 years like searching for it, like in a dump with like a bunch of different, I don't know, like excavators and stuff, and then just gave up. I felt fucking bad for the guy. I think there was like hundreds of millions of dollars on this Bitcoin wallet and he lost it. Sucks, man.
That's a different kind of human tragedy. But we are going to talk about someone who had a lot of money to be made, and that is James Cameron. For those who don't know, James Cameron is the writer and director of Titanic, the movie. And as the Titanic was being discovered at the bottom of the ocean, he was around 30 years old, and he's watching the CBS News special on the discovery of the ocean liner, and he is so intrigued and entranced by this. And he had always had a fascination with shipwrecks, and he particularly was drawn to the story of the Titanic due to the tragedy, which is very understandable. If you're like a train fanatic, you don't care about the train crashes that have occurred. You're just like pumped to see rare trains driving by in different countries, and you take photos and you go train spotting. So he wasn't necessarily interested in ships. He was interested in the stories of shipwrecks. And he saw the Titanic as the Mount Everest of shipwrecks. That's a quote from him. He made it his goal to one day visit the wreck himself. And as he brainstormed ideas for how to fund his own visit to the bottom of the ocean floor, he realized that the best way to do so would be to make a movie about the 1912 sinking, one that would go beyond a simple historical account, and create a film that would allow audiences to experience the human drama of the Titanic tragedy that had so fascinated Cameron for so many years. He hoped that by doing this, the film would generate enough funds for him to join his own expedition, to go down to the ship himself and see it in person through the windows of a submarine. Little did Cameron know that when he set out to make his movie, it would become the most expensive film ever made at the time, with a production budget around $200 million. Co-funded by 20th Century Fox and Paramount Pictures, Titanic the movie was filmed over the course of 8 months, with scenes shot in California, Canada, and Mexico. Besides going well over budget and over schedule, the filming of the Titanic was plagued with its fair share of mishaps and incidents. Kate Winslet nearly drowned when her coat was caught by something underwater during the filming of the lifeboat scene. Several stunt and background actors were injured during the sinking scenes when they unexpectedly bounced off parts of the ship, breaking bones and even rupturing organs. And during the last day of filming in Canada, around 80 cast and crew, including James Cameron himself, were drugged with PCP in a bizarre crime that has never been solved. I am obsessed with teeth. Not in a scary serial killer way, but more like in a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the Tooth Fairy kind of way. My point is, I try really hard to take care of my teeth, but I also suffer from involuntary clenching and grinding in my sleep that gets infinitely worse during high stress times in my life. If you're part of the 30% of Americans who grind and clench their teeth, then your smile needs protection, and there's no better solution than REMI's custom fit night guards. Both dentists and teeth grinders recommend REMI because a custom fit night guard is the best way to protect your teeth, and REMI is 80% less than the dentist and way, way easier. Here's how it works. Receive your impression kit straight to your door. REMI gives you step-by-step instructions to get your perfect impression. REMI ships you your custom fit night guard made in the US in Las Vegas, and you get your night guard back and start protecting your teeth. Nat and I are both users of REMI, and we're shocked by how easy the process is. The best part is that REMI is so confident you'll get a perfect fit that they offer a 45-night perfect fit guarantee or your money back. No waiting rooms, no overpriced bills, just a better way to protect your teeth while you sleep. Try REMI risk-free at shopremi.com/haunted and use code HAUNTED to get up to 50% off your night guard at checkout. That's 50% off at shopremi.com/haunted with code HAUNTED. Thanks, REMI, for sponsoring this week's episode. Nat, have you ever heard of the PCP Chowder incident of the Titanic movie?
I have heard of it because it comes up on Reddit every once in a while, like in the same way that like people are like, did you know Dave Matthews Band like emptied their shit tank like on a bunch of passengers who were going underneath a bridge, like on a fucking tour boat or something?
Today marks 20 years since the Dave Matthews Band tour bus dumped 800 pounds of bathroom waste, hitting unsuspecting passengers on a tour boat passing by.
When their tour bus like went over a bridge, they just like emptied out. That's Dave Matthews Band, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, those two facts come up on Reddit all the time, and I need to know more, so I'm very glad that we're doing this episode. Is James Cameron just like a freak? Like, first of all, he's 30 years old. Was he already a director at 30 years old that had like enough clout and power that he could just get fucking Paramount Pictures and whoever the fuck else to give him 200 million to like make this biopic or whatever of the Titanic?
He officially became a director in 1981. In 1985, the Titanic was found. So his directorial debut was the movie Piranha 2, The Spawning, which I have never heard of before. It kind of sounds like, you know, fitting that it would be a starter film. I've literally never heard of it.
Sleek, fierce, savage, deadly, the Piranha.
But he also worked in 1984 as the director of Terminator.
Oh. He must be like a Nepo baby or something.
Let's Google it. Is James Cameron a Nepo? It says no, he's not.
He lived in a box and he worked himself up by his bootstraps, and his uncle just happened to give him a loan for $4 million, which was basically nothing if you're a director.
I was living on a hippie compound. I had no possessions, but my uncle ran Halliburton and was bombing Afghanistan. So here we go. This is what it says about James Cameron. It says he was a truck driver in 1977 who quit his job after he was inspired by seeing Star Wars. He initially focused on visual effects and special effects, working on projects like Battle Beyond the Stars. This led to roles in production at New World Pictures under Roger Corman, and then his breakthrough came with writing and directing The Terminator in 1984.
He's a great director.
I feel like there's some missing information there. Who did he know?
Yeah.
Who did he know?
I remember one time my husband got me, like, as my birthday present, the track club that we were a part of was, like, doing a, like, free, like, you can, you know, like, as a raffle, like, here's one of the prizes if you enter the raffle. Like, you can do a director Zoom meeting with this, like, famous Atlanta director who does this famous TV show that everyone's heard of that I don't want to say the name of in case I ever do end up get a job. Okay. So, but this is like an A-list director person, and no one was entering the raffle. So then they just were like, okay, actually it's just going to be like X amount of money. Like if you'll buy this thing. And then like the day before, no one was buying it, and they kept lowering it down until it was at like $250. And then my husband was like, okay, $250 like for a birthday present to like to have an hour-long conversation with this famous director for my, you know, wife who's like into directing. Like this is like a good thing or whatever. So I did this hour-long Zoom call with this person, and they were just talking. Like I showed them my like little film I was working on, and they were talking about it with me and like telling me all about the industry and like giving me tips and like all this stuff. And so then I was like, how did you go from someone who was working like on a set to someone who was directing you know, multi-million-dollar franchise on a multi-billion-dollar like network, you know? And
Right.
they were like giving me all this stuff like, well, I worked my way up and da 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 and all this stuff. And then at the very end, they were talking about growing up on a set because their dad is a fucking famous director for a famous fucking TV show. And they were like, yeah, I'm a legacy, like my dad's a legacy director. And I was like, I don't think, like, it does not take away any of your skill or any of your talent or any of the hard work and the bullshit that you went to get to where you are. To just say, yeah, dude, like, I'm a fucking Nepo baby, or like, yeah,
Right.
I had a huge leg up, like, because I'm like, it's such a waste of time for the average person like me to get advice from someone like you that's like, well, actually, like, you know, if you just change this angle, then like it's gonna be that much better. Or, like, if you just tune the sound here, it's like, no, bro, like I need my dad to be a fucking famous director to give me all of the shit that he has access to and all of the money and all, you know what I mean? And so
Right. I think the main gripe people have with Nepo babies, because it's like a huge topic of conversation in the last few years, I don't think people actually care that somebody got their foot in the door because they have a relative that got them that interview. I
Yeah.
think what's annoying is when people don't acknowledge it, because you're trying to ask for advice. Like, how
Right.
can I be like you? Like, this is so inspirational. You just said your
Right.
rags to riches. You busted your ass. Like, tell me about how to do that myself. And then it's like, oh, yeah, and actually my dad was Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like the conversation has changed recently to like people being like super annoyed with Nepo babies, which I'm not. I fucking wish I was a Nepo baby. Shit looks cool as fuck. But like, you know, even like 20 years ago, it used to be like, oh my God, like her dad owns the Lakers. She's so cool. You know what I mean? Like it used to be like, oh my God, Angelina Jolie's dad is John Voight. Like, wow, like Hollywood royalty. And the conversation has really only changed like recently. And so I feel like that's why they try to like not own up to it, because they like don't want to be seen as a Nepo baby. It's just like fucking own it. That shit's cool as fuck, bro. I
Yeah.
would be a Nepo baby.
Yeah, it's like Dakota Johnson, I think, was interviewed semi-recently saying, like, don't call me a Nepo baby. That's not fair. Like, I did all this myself, whatever. And then people on Reddit, because that's where I hang out, were like, dude, Dakota Johnson, we like you. Like, you
Yeah.
put Ellen DeGeneres in her place. None of us care if, like, that you got a leg up. We just want you to acknowledge it. Like, we already like you, you know?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm on this Reddit thread about James Cameron and how he got his start, and it does actually seem like he may have been rags to riches. So
What? He's just an insane but like, how do you go from Piranha 2 to the Terminator, which is like a huge, you know what? That's
here,
the part
look, let me tell you, this person, DJ Hendo 78, 5 years ago, on r/filmmakers has a whole fucking timeline. I'll read it really quickly. So this person says, in 1971, at age 17, James Cameron and his family moved from Canada to California. In 1973, he studied physics at community college, then switched to English, but then left school in 74. He worked odd jobs, but wrote in his free time and learned about special effects by reading anything on film technology at libraries. He saw Star Wars in 77 and quit his trucking job. In 78, he borrowed some money. Now, this I feel is important. How much money and from whom? But it says in 1978, he borrowed some money to write, direct, and produce his first short film, Xenogenesis. In 79, he was a production assistant on Rock and Roll High School. He worked as a miniature model maker at Roger Corman Studios. In In 1980, he was the art director for Battle Beyond the Stars. In 81, he was production designer for Galaxy of Terror. In 82, he was promoted from special effects director to director on Piranha 2: The Spawning, when the initial director quit due to creative differences with the Italian producers. Filming in Rome, Cameron was fired after 2.5 weeks by the Italian producers, who took over and refused to take Cameron's name off the film because contractually they couldn't deliver it with an Italian name. That seems racist. Cameron was not allowed to see the footage and was not involved in editing. He broke into the editing room in Rome and cut his own version while the producers were at Cannes Film Festival, but was caught and the producer recut it again. In 1982, he wrote the script for Terminator and sold it for $1 to Gail Ann Hurd on the condition that she produce it only if Cameron directed it.
He wrote Terminator?
That's what it says. Film was set to begin in 1983 in Toronto, but was delayed due to Schwarzenegger's availability for 9 months filming Conan the Destroyer. During the waiting period, Cameron was contracted to write the script for Rambo: First Blood Part 2. Refined the Terminator script and met with producer Dave Giler and Walter Hill to discuss a sequel to Alien. In March 1984, Terminator began production in LA. The film premiered in the same year, 1984, and grossed almost $40 million in the US and Canada for a total worldwide of $78.3 million.
That's impressive. And I'm pretty sure that's James Cameron who wrote all of that out. Because, like, how would anybody know that? It's impressive. I'm not saying that, like, he's not super talented and didn't make his way up. I'm just saying my understanding of Hollywood is that, like, you have to have some crazy sort of connections to get in, you know? And if it's not in Hollywood, you're uber rich. So I wonder where he borrowed the money from. But the fact
for the first film,
yeah, but the fact that he wrote Terminator is pretty dope. Or I don't know, maybe the 1980s were really just like on some archaic shit where they were like, "Oh my god, you know how to use a computer? Here's $10 million." You know what I mean?
Dude, I went to a wedding recently and I was talking to my Uber driver. She was like, "Oh, like, where are you from?" And I was like, "California," because it was an out-of-state wedding. And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I heard housing prices are, like, crazy there." And I don't remember how we got on the topic, but she was like, "Oh, yeah, I know someone who, like, has this really beautiful home and it's worth so much, but they bought it in, like, the 1950s or something." And I was like, "Yeah, dude, back in the day, all you had to do was go up to somebody and be like, 'I have 3 oranges and a painting by my grandma. Can I barter with you and trade for this home?' And people would be like, 'Yup.' Like, back in the day, you could literally just give someone $1,000 for your down payment and congratulations, you have a home."
Yeah.
And it's not like that anymore. So yeah, maybe to your point, back in the day, I don't know, was it cheaper to make your first film? Who is to say? But whatever the case, James Cameron was fucking obsessed with Titanic, the ship, the tragedy, Titanic. And that is what led him to direct the film Titanic. He also wrote Titanic. It was his creative vision that brought the fictional story of Rose and Jack into the movie. He felt really strongly, because he was so fascinated by shipwrecks, that he wanted everyone to really feel the human side of the wreck. So that rather than just gawking, you are gawking, but also emotionally invested to where you no longer become a voyeur to a tragedy. You feel like you're entwined in this human story of what happened to 1,500 people that fateful night. And as we said, he specifically decided to do this movie because, one, he was obsessed, but two, he really wanted to go down to the Titanic. So as he's watching this film footage that was released to CBS News by this joint French-American venture to find the Titanic, he's hard, okay? He is ready. He's like, wow, these people fucking did it. I want to be part of the people, because this was a remote controlled submarine that found the Titanic. People were not inside of it. And he was like, I need money to be able to fund an expedition that will eventually make it so that I, the person, can be inside of a submarine that goes down there. Like, I need to invest in this so that the technology progresses. And so by making the film Titanic, he really wanted it to be really fucking good. And guess what it was? Because as we said at the beginning of this episode, 85% of American adults have seen Titanic. So it is a household name by this point. Eventually, he would make 33 dives to the wreckage of the Titanic between the years 1995 1995 and 2005. So, I mean, pretty fucking crazy. That
Doing what, though? Just, like, looking at it? Like,
Yep.
oh, I wonder if I can find Starbird's C-33, you know, and look at the armoire like that?
James Cameron, an explorer, as well as an innovator in underwater marine and movie technology.
There was this powerful, almost magnetic attraction to find out what's down there. That great mystery of what's down there in the darkness.
this fascination it sort of reminds me of like weebs who are like very obsessed with
Japan
and anime and stuff, which Nat is a self-professed weeb. And I think James Cameron was a weeb for shipwrecks. And so he's just like, yes, I'm fucking down here looking at it's snapped in half. This is so fucking hot. Oh my God, I can't believe it.
Okay, but Allie, would a weeb have this?
Yes. Look, I'm not saying you're wrong. I think we need weebs of the ocean and weebs of the land to get shit done, okay? We need hot, busty women dressed as bunny rabbits in wigs. We do, okay? We also need people to go down to Titanic and take pictures of shoes so that we all know that it was real, okay? We need weeb.
Do not compare my culture with a fucking one-time wreck. Okay, we are talking about the entirety of the Japanese culture. Okay, I'm talking about the Edo period. I'm talking about the post-World War II. I'm talking about the whole thing. Okay, modern anime and all of the things that encompasses. Weeb like refers to an entire culture. Okay. You can't just compare that to the Titanic. Like the Titanic is a wreck.
I don't know what song I'm going to put behind that, but I cannot wait to find music for that rant. Yeah, I don't know. He just really wanted to go down to the Titanic, and he even had a near-death experience. This is kind of haunted. On one of his dives down to the Titanic, where he became trapped for 16 hours on one of his dives due to an underwater sandstorm. Isn't that fucking crazy? Yes.
In that like little thing. What? I bet it smelled like shits and farts.
And then did you also know he took the Deep Sea Challenger, which is his own submersible that he designed and piloted. He took it down to the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
No. Okay, so he must be like brilliant. Like he's like an engineer. He's like studied physics. He's like, okay, fine. James
fine, we
Cameron.
like you, James Cameron. Okay.
I'm James Cameron. I could do everything. Okay, I was a truck driver, and then I got a loan from an ambiguous source of money, and I also wrote Terminator. God, fuck, sit down, bruh. Can we back up for a second, though? What do you mean 80 people got drugged with PCP on the set? Was that Leonardo? Seems like something he might do.
Okay, yes, we're about to get into the story. As usual, we've gotten sidetracked. This is the last sidetrack I have for you. Go ahead and take a hand first.
This is South Park James Cameron.
Pressure system is normal. Music on. His name is James Cameron, the bravest pioneer. No budget too steep, no sea too deep. Who's that? It's him, James Cameron. Systems are normal. You guys hearing the song okay up there? James Cameron, explorer of the sea.
Yes, James, we hear the song.
Wow.
Maybe I'll put that behind
Park
your rant.
Can't even like come up with one thing to make fun of you except for that how accomplished you are. Like that's the joke, you know? Like okay, fine. I don't know why I just have like a hater energy towards him. Probably because I feel threatened by him because he's accomplished so much.
When someone is like living your dream, you know,
it's hard.
It's hard.
It's really difficult, guys.
It's really hard to watch. All right, so now it is time to get into the titular mystery of today's episode. And it all went down on August 8th, 1996. Titanic was getting ready to wrap up its filming in Canada in preparation to move on to its final scenes, which would be shot in Mexico. So it's the final night of filming in Nova Scotia. The Titanic crew has been toiling away on the modern-day wreck scenes, and spirits are high. They're about to wrap up the shoot in Canada and head to a bigger set in Mexico to finish the film once and for all. Just after midnight, everyone gathers for a well-deserved meal. The catering team lays out an impressive spread, and the crown jewel is a big, steaming pot of creamy seafood chowder. Director James Cameron even comes down from his production office to join the crew for this late-night feast, ready to toast a successful wrap. The chowder is delicious. I wrote this so fucking like cunty and pretentious. Okay, here we go. Doesn't matter. The chowder is delicious. So good that many go back for seconds and even thirds. Maybe that was part of the problem. One crew member mused in hindsight. People ate more than usual because they loved the taste of the chowder. With full bellies, the team returns to work. But within 30 minutes, it's clear something is very wrong. A strange mood sweeps through the set. People feel woozy and disoriented. One by one, the crew members start acting not quite like themselves. Quote, some people were laughing, some people were crying, some people were throwing up, recalled actor Bill Paxton, who had joined Cameron for a bowl of that chowder. At first, Paxton and others assumed it must be food poisoning, maybe bad shellfish in the soup. But the symptoms soon became even more bizarre. Folks aren't just sick, they're behaving as if they're intoxicated, or worse. Paxton remembers feeling, quote, so goddamn anxious, I wanted to breathe into a paper bag. And moments after eating, James Cameron was, quote, feeling exactly the same way. Across the set, people began hallucinating and losing their composure. It was like a scene out of a party movie gone wrong. As the situation escalates, James Cameron quickly senses that this is no ordinary case of bad chowder. According to crew accounts, the director ran to the restroom and forced himself to vomit as soon as he realized something was amiss with the food. His swift, if unpleasant, reaction probably saved him from a worse fate. Others weren't so lucky. The late-night meal had turned into a nightmare. The set of Titanic, quote, emptied out like the Twilight Zone, as Cameron described it later. One moment the soundstage was bustling, the next, dozens of people had wandered away in a daze or collapsed with sickness. Crew members who hadn't eaten the chowder stood by in alarm, watching their colleagues stumble around, freaking out. It almost looked like a surreal zombie film. On one side, the okay folks who skipped dinner, and on the other, an ever-growing line of nauseous or giggling victims, as more chowder eaters, quote, crossed over into the bad trip. It didn't take long to connect the dots. Everyone who ate the chowder was high, and this was no food poisoning. It soon became clear that someone had spiked the soup. This is an ad by BetterHelp. Men's mental health is unfairly stigmatized, and it's high time we addressed it. I have seen firsthand the way that so many men feel like they're not allowed to express emotions, let alone have the tools to learn how to express their emotions in a healthy way. It's no wonder that 6 million men in the United States suffer from depression each year, and it often goes undiagnosed. It's okay to struggle. Real strength comes from opening up about what you're carrying and doing something about it so you can be your best self for everyone in your life. I go to therapy so that I don't feel like I'm dumping too much baggage on the ones that I love. And after each session with my therapist, I feel so much lighter and freer. If you want to give therapy a try but aren't sure where to start, why not try BetterHelp, the world's largest online therapy platform, having served 5 million people globally. It's convenient. You can join a session with a therapist at the click of a button. Switching therapists is easy, so there's no awkward breakup conversation if your therapist isn't right for you. And over 1.7 million client reviews on the App Store rate BetterHelp 4.9 out of 5, which is insane. I'm pretty sure our rating on the Apple Store is like 4.7 out of 5. BetterHelp is doing better than Let's Get Haunted. Oh no. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/gethaunted. That's better. HELP.com/gethaunted. A man who goes to therapy? I was trying to be sexy for you guys. Hold on. A man who goes to therapy is hot. And now back to your regularly scheduled haunting.
How did they figure out that it was PCP then? Well,
We haven't gotten there yet. There's a police investigation. So this is real. This really happened. It's not speculation at all. But do you think you would have been one of the people that ate the chowder, or do you think you would have abstained?
No. As soon as I heard the story, if I'm on a set, my ass is not eating anything because I do not want to go use the bathroom one time on that set. As someone who has been a part of a very few Hollywood productions, the bigger ones, like when I was on the set of beer commercials or something like that, all of the quote unquote below line people, not your star actors or what, are gonna fucking be taking advantage of the food that they're getting, right? And so a lot of them overeat because, this is a good meal and, you're working.
And it's free.
You're a starving actor. You're not eating very well when you're not working. And so the bathrooms are usually kind of gross. Also, chowder would have me fucked up, even if there wasn't drugs in it. My stomach is not meant for chowder. Just the name of it, chowder. It's like liquid cheese or something. I don't even know what chowder is, but I know it's got
it's got dairy.
Consistency of cheese.
Yeah, it's thick, it's creamy, it's made with dairy, it's made with seafood. I would for sure not be partaking, one, because I don't eat dairy. So again, I win. I avoided the cost increase of eggs because I don't eat those. And I also would have avoided being drugged by PCP lobster chowder because I don't fucking eat dairy. But yeah, I mean, to your point, especially the crew was the majority of people who were affected because free food, when you're a starving crew member or actor just trying to make a name for yourself, you're going to partake. Now, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet did not eat the chowder. And this becomes interesting later when people are levying accusations against people like, who did it? It has to be someone who didn't eat the chowder. It can't be James Cameron. He ate the chowder. It can't be someone in the production office because they all ate the chowder. But who didn't? And then there's a couple of actors that didn't. There's a couple other people who didn't in the crew. And so, yeah, it becomes this full-on war of pointing fingers when this gets around to being investigated. Now, I just sent you a video because there are a lot of interviews you can find. The one I just sent you is Bill Paxton, who was an actor on the Titanic set, talking to Larry King on Larry King Live about his experience being drugged.
Did you eat any of the PCP spiked clam chowder from the set of Titanic, and did they ever catch the person responsible?
Yeah, that's kind of a crazy story. I remember I shot the first couple weeks of Titanic. What Jim did, he had me and Gloria Stewart and Susie Amos. We were all up in Halifax, Nova Scotia. We were shooting on the Keldysh, which is the Russian research vessel that had the 2 Mir subs that Jim had taken down to Titanic to shoot some footage that he used in the film. While we were shooting that, they were building the big set down in Rosarita Beach. One night, we were shooting splits. We would go in around 5 o'clock, and so we would take our dinner at midnight, and then we'd work till dawn. And I didn't care for the caterer much, so I was ordering my meals in, but I was having a good conversation with Jim Cameron on the set. And I said, Jim, are you going to eat off the truck tonight? He said, yeah. I said, well, I'll join you. So we ladled up the clam chowder, not knowing it was laced with PCP. And I don't know who did it or why, but I remember going back to my trailer after lunch, and Jim went up to his office. And I heard a commotion, and I opened up my door, and I saw a couple of ambulances pulling in, and then an AD ran up and said, are you feeling okay? And I was like, well, I think I'm shooting all night. I'm feeling about as good as you can feel. And he said, well, did you eat the clam chowder? And I thought, well, yeah, I had a couple of bowls. And about that time, I started feeling it. Now I'm starting to witness some bizarre behavior with the crew and stuff. And they take us very close by. We were on the Dartmouth side of Halifax Bay. And so all of a sudden, here's 150 crew members stumbling into the emergency room of a very small hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning. You see some people are freaking out, some people are conga dancing, some people are euphoric. I knew I was pretty stoned on something pretty bad, and I thought, me and Jim thought that there was a neurotoxin in the clams. We didn't know what it was. We thought maybe the clams had been left out in the sun or whatever. But I figured while they examine all these other 100 people, I said to Jim, Jim, I'm not going to hang out here. This is bedlam. I'm going to wander, because it was only a few blocks from the set. I'm going to wander back down and just drink a case of beer, which is what I did. And, that seemed to help me.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is like, why that makes more sense to me, because when you were like, oh, everyone's having this bad trip, I was like, why is it immediately bad? You guys, I've been around the block, okay, but I have never tried PCP. I don't like that, like, does not like stick out to me as something to try. I kind of don't even know what it is, right? PCP, angel dust, all of that, it's like the same thing, right?
I'll read to you about it.
Because maybe I have done it.
I doubt it. I don't think, the type of party drugs that are common amongst the youths, especially people in college or people that go to raves and stuff, it's usually cut with meth. It's not usually cut with PCP. PCP, I feel like, is when your whole life is falling apart. You take PCP. It's really difficult on your body, from my understanding. We'll talk about what PCP is in a little bit, but for now, we are left with people starting to go insane. Like Bill Paxton said in that interview, people were forming a conga line. By some crew members' accounts, they witnessed James Cameron running to the bathroom to make himself throw up, screaming, "It's inside me! It's inside me!" Now, he denies that happened, but there are a lot of witnesses who have come forward and said that really did happen. He also has given several interviews, and we'll look at one of his interviews later about the PCP drugging when we get to the theories for who we think may have done it. But at this point in the story, crew members are dropping like flies, and there is only one thing to do: get to a hospital fast. In the early hours of August 9th, 1996, around 50 to 80 people, depending on who you believe, piled into vans and rushed to the Dartmouth General Hospital in Nova Scotia. James Cameron, Bill Paxton, crew painters, camera assistants, people from all ranks up the production found themselves en masse in the ER around 1 a.m. So imagine the scene: a waiting room suddenly flooded with Titanic cast and crew, all exhibiting wild and confused behavior. Dr. Rob Roy, who treated several of them, later said bluntly, quote, "These people were stoned. They had no idea what was going on," end quote. The hospital staff were caught completely off guard by this late-night invasion of loopy filmmakers. And people who were later interviewed, that were just regular fucking people sitting in the waiting room of this hospital, said all of a sudden this giant wave of people came in and they're dancing, they're screaming, they're talking a mile a minute. One guy, people described him as being like 6'6", and so that's why they really remember him. He's like jumping around and like dancing, and he's like, "I've done PCP before. This is definitely PCP, guys. I used to do PCP. This is definitely PCP, guys." And he's just literally jumping around the ER waiting room like, "Guys, we're on PCP." And so that is, I think, also why a lot of people were like early on suspecting that it was PCP. And it was kind of comical, even though it's also alarming. Like if I found out I was drugged, I would immediately have a bad trip, because if you're not prepared for it, you're not in the right frame of mind. It ruins your whole fucking day. You don't know how much you were given. Like, it's bad. And so I do think that's also why a lot of people's trips were bad. But shit. It was also kind of funny. One crew member recalled of the hospital staff, quote, "They did not know what to do with us," end quote. And allegedly, the nurses and staff were like chasing people around the hospital because they were so fucking high that even if you tried to triage them and put them in a room, they would just leave the room and they would start wandering around the hospital like, "Hey, what's going on in here?" And they're like busting through other people's rooms. Some people are dancing. People are like trying to break into like different rooms, and like people are wandering over to the nurse's station and trying to go on computers and stuff. Like, it's just total chaos. And then they're trying to corral them back into their room, and they like won't go.
I looked up high on PCP on YouTube because I wanted to see something to know what it was like. And the first thing that comes up is Steve-O's dark relationship with PCP. And then another one says, "I took PCP and ate my friend." And then another one says, "Man thought he was a mermaid after smoking PCP." This is a short.
Oh my God. Yep, guys, he's swimming in a gutter and his ass is out. That's what I mean. Like, it's not a party drug. PCP is not something that is going to be recreationally used by people that are having a good time.
PCP advocate. What are you advocating? This person says, I've been synthesizing PCP since I was 13. This is very weird. But yeah, if that's what Steve-O was doing, I understand now why people would be like, okay, we don't know what to do with these people in the hospital. Like, to do Jackass, you need to be, I don't even know what you need to be on. And so I guess that's PCP? I don't know.
I think he was also doing Whippets. Steve-O has like a really interesting history, and he's very open about his past addiction issues. So I'm sure I'm going to definitely watch his video on PCP later because he is so engaging when you listen to him speak. But yeah, he was definitely like not having a good time a lot of the time. Like they used him to do the most dangerous of stunts because he was so fucking high. He didn't care what happened to him. And like when he broke bones, he was so high that he didn't hardly feel the pain. So yeah, we can imagine what's going on here. And some folks, by all accounts, were having a really, really rough time. There were some people that had prior drug experiences that said they were triggered into bad trip flashbacks. There were some people who had never been high before. Some people had never even had a beer before, and they're high on PCP. So you can imagine how disorienting that would be. And many of them were overtaken by manic energy and giddiness. Nobody wanted to lie down in the curtained-off cubicles that the hospital provided, and instead, painter Marilyn McAvoy would later describe in an interview, quote, everyone was out in the aisles of the hospital jumping into other people's cubicles, end quote.
It was a party.
Yeah, it's a fucking party. She goes on to say, quote, people had a lot of energy. Some were in wheelchairs flying down the hallways. I mean, everyone was high, end quote.
I love that. That kind of reminds me of Allie in college one time. I like went to go hang out with her because she was like, I don't even remember what it was. But when I came to come hang out with her, she was in the middle of the street with one of our other friends named Jack. And I think Jack had like a leash on him or like some sort of rope tied to him and then like tied to the chair and was running. And Allie was just in this like a computer chair, you know, like a computer chair with like the little like wheels on the bottom, just being dragged around down the street and was like, we found this computer chair in the trash. How cool is that? And I was like,
oh, it's even better. If I can find the picture, I'll throw it up here. But we were taking turns on the computer chair, and we had made a chariot out of it so that it was attached to two bicycles. And so me and a roommate were on the bicycles, and then our friend Jack was in the chair, and we were just like whipping it around as fast as we could. And then we would like switch off. So one of us would be in the chair. And so when you pulled up, I'm sure I was in the chair because I was having the fucking time of my life. It was a day drinking time. And yeah, just being whipped around the street in this chair. That is kind of what I imagine. Thank you for that flashback. Mm-hmm. Yes, that is kind of how I imagine this to be. Painter Marilyn McAvoy, who was on the crew of the Titanic movie, said that, yeah, people were having full-on wheelchair races in hospital corridors. At one point, another conga line of intoxicated crew members start snaking through the halls, with Cameron and Paxton reportedly joining in on the impromptu party. However, in that interview with Larry King, you'll notice he says, no, I didn't go to the hospital, Bill Paxton. He's like, I didn't go to the hospital. I just went downstairs and had a beer, like very cool and nonchalant about it. Right. But according to some people, he did go to the ER and was participating in this Congo line as James Cameron's running up and down the aisles about, there's something in me, get it out, get it out.
Did anyone get sued? Like, did James Cameron or like Titanic get sued?
Yes. Yeah. So, okay. I mean, you can imagine the fallout from this made the budget for the movie go way over budget. And it wasn't just this incident that made the movie go over budget, but there were so many injuries, illnesses that happened on this set. I mean, it was just chaos. I
have heard like Kate Winslet after this said in an interview she'll never do another movie like in water ever again.
Yeah, because she almost drowned. Yeah, there were multiple cases of different scenes where she got pneumonia after the scene where she and Jack are, you know, in the water shivering and stuff. Like, they had to reshoot that so many times. Her in the water, her on top of the door, that she got really bad pneumonia in both of her lungs after the shooting. And there were cases, like I said earlier, where she almost drowned because you have to go into the water. Even though it's a set, you're in this huge body of water with a fake a sinking ship behind you, and she got caught on some debris that was floating around her and almost got dragged in because you're not in a swimsuit, right? Like you're in full on like period appropriate attire.
Like a wool coat that probably weighs like 20 pounds when it gets wet.
Exactly. And they had also put her and Leo in these scuba suits underneath their full-on period attire. So even though that was supposed to keep them warmer, it just really was dragging them down even more because it was so heavy.
Can't Kate Winslet like hold her breath underwater for like 6 minutes or something? I saw that too. Did you see that?
How long can Kate Winslet hold her breath? Here we go. In 2020, she famously revealed that she can hold her breath underwater for 7 minutes, beating Tom Cruise.
I don't know what to do with that info, guys, but
is
the rest of the world just like that much more epic than us? Like James Cameron like invented a submarine so he could go down to the Titanic so he could make the best movie America has ever had. And then Kate Winslet, who was a star on that, like she can fucking hold her breath underwater for 6 minutes casually for 7 minutes for no fucking reason.
This is an article for the HuffPost. This is by Marco Margaritov. That's an interesting last name. Margaritov said, quote, in 2020, Kate Winslet famously broke Tom Cruise's unofficial record for holding one's breath underwater while filming, but it wasn't easy, clocking in at 7 minutes, 14 seconds of holding her breath while filming Avatar: The Way of Water. Winslet easily surpassed Cruise's previous record of 6.5 minutes, which he reached while filming Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, end quote.
That's a clone. I don't believe any of these people are fucking real. Like, what person? This is like MK Ultra for sure. Like, what do you mean you just built a submarine, like, to go to the Titanic?
Nobody knows for sure, but it does seem like movie sets have some of the most haunted behavior, stunts, and mishaps occurring, including this one of the PCP Chowder incident. So witnesses would go on to say that the scene was just utter chaos, equal parts hilarity and horror, as if the Titanic crew had suddenly been transported into a slapstick comedy. And amid the pandemonium, hospital staff administered an antidote. It was a combination of activated charcoal, which helps absorb toxins, and some other antipsychotic drugs in some cases to help people calm down. Some people were tranquilized to prevent them from continuing to rip IVs out of them as they ran down the aisles, racing each other on wheelchairs. Apparently, and this is unconfirmed, but one crew member said that somebody literally tipped a guy out of his wheelchair, like a different patient, and then just started running with the wheelchair away from the guy. So the staff is doing everything they can to just calm people down. And as the hours passed, the involuntary trip gradually subsided. And by sunrise, the Titanic team was coming back to baseline and very eager to go home. In the dawn light outside the hospital, folks milled about in disbelief. What the fuck had just happened to them? Some started playing hacky sack in the parking lot, blowing off steam as the bizarre night came to an end. And others turned into their hotel to sleep for 12 hours or more by some accounts. Remarkably, despite the fear and confusion of the night, no one was seriously harmed. The drug's effects wore off without lasting injury. And in true showbiz fashion, many of these people went home, went to sleep, and returned to work by that evening to continue filming. And James Cameron said he was one of those people. He came out of his trip and was like, we're already over budget. Like, what's that thing that who's the guy that sexually harassed everyone on Fox News? Bill O'Reilly, where he's like, fuck it, we're doing it live.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Right. Fucking thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away.
Fuck it. Like, that's kind of the energy that I imagine James Cameron is having, where he's like, all right, I just was tripping on PCP. Fuck it. We're already over budget. This is only making it worse. I'm going to go balls to the wall and continue filming. Now, it would be some weeks before the crew learned exactly what they had been drugged with, but many already knew it was PCP. Like I said, there was one guy who everyone described as being like enormous, and he's like, I used to do PCP back in the day, and it's definitely PCP, as he's like doing a jig around the ER room. So, of course, the production team has to report this to the police. They're going to have to later make a claim, I'm sure, on their workers' comp insurance. I'm sure on their liability insurance, because they're going over budget and 80 people have been poisoned. So they have to file this police report, and the police have to come out and start to investigate. The police soon uncover, after testing the remains of the chowder, that a deliberate act of drugging had taken place on the movie set, resulting in a Hollywood whodunit in real life. Once the immediate crisis passed, the Titanic production and local authorities turned their attention to a burning question. Who on earth laced the chowder with drugs, and why? At first, James Cameron and others thought it might have been a case of toxic shellfish, like we said earlier. Perhaps paralytic shellfish neurotoxin, a naturally occurring contaminant in the mussels or clams or lobster, since the symptoms came on so fast and strong. But that theory was quickly disproven by science. When toxicology results came back, they revealed the true culprit. The chowder had been spiked with PCP, also known as the hallucinogen angel dust. It wasn't accidental food poisoning at all, but a malicious act. Halifax police opened a criminal investigation, treating the incident very seriously. News of the bizarre event leaked out to the press, despite production trying their best to tamp down on stories being leaked, turning the Titanic set into tabloid fodder for a while. And the Halifax Regional Police, joined by food safety authorities in Canada, interviewed crew members and inspected the catering operation, trying to find any clue as to who would have done this. Immediately, suspicion swirled. One rumor pointed to a pair of disgruntled caterers. At the time, 2 local catering companies had been contracted to feed the Titanic crew in Nova Scotia. Could some unhappy kitchen staffer have dumped PCP into the pot out of spite? Some on set thought so, and this theory made its way into the press early on. However, when questioned, the catering companies vehemently denied it. In Entertainment Weekly, the CEO of one catering outfit, called UNAD Quality Foods, insisted that none of his employees would do such a thing. In his colorful words, he said, quote, "It was the Hollywood crowd bringing in the psychedelic shit as usual. I don't think it was purposefully done to hurt somebody. It was done like a party thing that got carried away." End quote. In other words, he floated the idea that perhaps someone among the film crew spiked the soup as a prank or ill-conceived party favor, not to cause harm, but as a joke that went horribly wrong.
I don't know. Is it like the scene in The Hangover, where the one guy that's like super weird, I forget his name, spoiler alert, guys, if you haven't seen the first Hangover, this is about to be a spoiler. But he gave everyone a date rape drug, including himself, because he was like, I just wanted it to be fun and us all to be on the same level or whatever. I'm wondering, is it like that? Did the person who put it in the PCP, or who put the PCP in the chowder, did they just also do it? I don't know. It's hard. Was it the really tall guy that was like, hey guys, this is definitely PCP? He seems pretty sus.
Seems pretty chaotic, right?
But also,
yeah, maybe.
Wait, hold on though. But to have enough of that drug, this is coming from someone who does not know anything about angel dust or PCP. I'm just relating it to my own experience with designer drugs. Designer drugs are expensive. I'm assuming, is this a designer drug? Is this also expensive, I'm assuming? So it would have to come from someone who had a huge stash of it. Presumably it would be expensive, and then you're just going to throw it all into the... So that makes me think that it's someone who has expendable cash, but also who's not really a drug addict, who's someone who's just kind of hey, I have so much money and I don't really know what I'm doing, but this would be kind of funny, who doesn't have experience, right? And so that makes me think that it's not someone who has a lot of experience with drugs. It's someone who's just Leo, a young Leo.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not the right person to tell you if it's expensive or not, but I just Googled it right now, and according to zinniahealth.com, PCP powder ranges from $20 to $30 for 1 gram and $200 to $300 for an ounce. And in an interview that James Cameron gave to CBC, which is a news media source in Canada, they say that somebody had put a pound of PCP into the chowder. But I don't know how you could really estimate that. But yeah, they say a pound. So how many ounces in a pound? There are 16 ounces in a pound. So what is 16 times $200?
$3,200. So it'd be $3,200.
Wow, in today's money. But yeah, I mean, that's expensive. This has to be a dealer, right? Like it has to be
$3,200. So it's someone who just put that in there. But a dealer wouldn't just put their own product in a chowder for no reason. They would be trying to sell it. They would be trying to make money. That's what makes me think that it's someone who has expendable cash, someone mischievous like a young Leo.
Leonardo DiCaprio has publicly stated that he has never used drugs, and he has explained that his childhood experiences growing up in a neighborhood where he witnessed drug use from a young age caused him to resist that temptation when he entered Hollywood. So I don't know.
Have you seen the videos of him at Coachella dancing to MGMT?
Some people just are high on life, so who is to say? But Police Sergeant Richard Hollinshead told reporters that they weren't sure if a particular individual was targeted or if the entire crew was meant to be dosed at once. Quote, whether it was any specific crew member or person or the entire crew that was targeted, we don't know yet. We're not even sure if it was a prank or a mistake, end quote. The suspect list was wide open. It could have been a crew member, a caterer, or practically anyone with access to the food that night. James Cameron, for his part, publicly stated that he did not suspect anyone on his core crew would do this intentionally. But obviously he would say that, right? Because behind closed doors, I'm sure that he and the producers are like, hey, this is a media fucking nightmare for us. Yeah. This is a shitstorm. We're going to get sued. We're going to owe these people money. We're going to have to pay their hospital bills. Like, just really be like, this must have been a third party. It wasn't us. Like, limit your liability, right? I don't know how workers' comp works in the 90s for movie sets, but I can tell you, because I do HR and I have to do workers' comp cases, if a third party causes the injury, that is your fucking best case scenario. Because as the employer is going to be liable no matter what, and is going to have to pay for everything that employee suffered and pay to get them whole, or as whole as possible, which is called maximum medical improvement, or MMI. But if somebody else caused it, you can do this thing called subrogation, where after you pay for everything for that employee, you can then sue the third party. And if they have money or a insurance policy, they're going to have to reimburse you for some percentage of that injury. So I'm sure that's what they're thinking, right? They're like, it wasn't us. It wasn't us. Yeah, we're going to have to pay, but let's lay the groundwork for subrogation so that we are at least recouping some of what we're going to be losing because we're already so high over budget.
I don't buy that that Leonardo DiCaprio has never tried drugs. Here's why. Okay, guys, this is my dissertation. Wolf of Wall Street is one of my favorite movies. Yes, I am just a bro at heart, you guys. I'm Sigma. I can't help it. It's just me. And in Wolf of Wall Street, Leo is phenomenal. And he plays a drug-addicted Wall Street dude. And he is, like, very into cocaine. He does crack in that movie. He does tons of Quaaludes. And he is famously a method actor. Like, famously goes above and beyond. He was great in that movie. There's a scene in that movie where he's doing blow out of a girl's butthole with a fucking straw, okay? And like, there's no way he went into that not having tried at least some sort of drug once to know how to even act or what that feels. And I've even watched interviews with him where he like was with the actual dude who wrote the book that Wolf of Wall Street is based off of. And he's like, yeah, like I went over to his house and he told me all about, you know, his life and showed me what it was like to be on Quaaludes. And we like got down on the ground and we're crawling around. And then Leo is kind of like, yeah, he's, you know, a really bad actor, and has like this smirk on his face. And in my mind, I was like, they for sure like took Quaaludes together, right? Like, or they did something.
Who is to say, is Leo just the talent of a generation? Yes. But is he also a talent of a generation that has partook in some party drugs? We may never know. Publicly, he says he's never done it before. But I don't know, guys. I've never known, or at least I don't know many actors that just come out and they're like, yeah, I do Quaaludes every night, and I only date teenagers, and I do cocaine, and like, no, everyone's trying to like be very PC and has good media training for the most part. So.
Yeah.
There are a lot of awesome things that have come out of Australia. Steve Irwin, Nicole Kidman, Uggs, the portal to Mars located at Pine Gap. But my new favorite Aussie export that's finally available in the US is the KOALA sofa bed. KOALA sofa beds are seriously comfortable. KOALA makes the most comfortable mattresses, and the sofa beds actually use their mattress technology inside. They have beautiful color options inspired by the Outback, no sad beige or millennial gray here. Unlike traditional sofa beds, KOALAs are designed for pure comfort. So they have no uncomfortable metal frames. They have tool-free assembly, no Allen wrenches, no stress, no tears, no fighting with your significant other over what tool and what piece is needed in which location. I'm having flashbacks right now. Everything comes in the box and easily slides, clicks, or screws together. Plus, they're perfect for small spaces. No need for a guest room. KOALA sofa bed comes in 3 sizes to fit smaller spaces. Anyone who is the youngest sibling in a family knows that when we have guests over at our house, the youngest sibling always has to sleep on the pull-out couch sofa bed. And my God, it sucks. And then your great Aunt Margaret wakes up in the morning, comes out, and she's like, thank you so much, Ellie, for taking the sofa bed. And you're just like, eyes so bloodshot and red. No problem, great Aunt Margaret. Anyway, get yourself a KOALA sofa bed. Upgrade your space with the most stylish, customizable, and elevated sofa bed available. To get up to $250 off your new sofa, plus fast shipping, go to us.koala.com/haunted. That's us.koala.com/haunted to get up to $250 off your new sofa. KOALA. Comfy, easy, sustainable. Thanks, KOALA, for sponsoring this week's episode. And now back to your regularly scheduled haunting. As the investigation unfolded, a few intriguing theories emerged. One stood out, and James Cameron himself has endorsed this in retrospect. According to Cameron, the day before the Chowder incident, a member of the crew had been fired on account of troublesome behavior involving the caterers. The theory goes that this disgruntled individual sabotaged the next day's meal as payback, not necessarily to hurt people, but to get the catering company in trouble. And if that was the plan, it sort of worked, because in the immediate aftermath of the poisoning, the caterers were indeed let go, under the assumption that they had either been negligent or were in some way responsible for the tainted food. In his own words, James Cameron said, quote, "We believe the poisoning was this idiot's plan to get back at the caterers, who, of course, we fired the next day. So, in a way, it worked," end quote. This theory paints the culprit as a vindictive ex-crew member trying to settle a score, essentially an inside job. But it was never proven. And we have to say that at the time, James Cameron was like, it's definitely not anyone in the crew, nobody in the crew. And then, years later, he's given several interviews where he's like, well, looking back, I do think it was someone from the crew. Like, now that this incident is far behind us and we've settled all of our legal claims, I actually do think it may have been someone from the crew. But another angle considered by the police was a prank gone wrong, which we already talked about a little bit earlier. Even the catering company boss, while denying any staff involvement, speculated that it might have been a harebrained joke. Quote, a party thing that got carried away. Perhaps someone thought it would be hilarious to dose their coworkers on the last night of filming, expecting maybe some giggles and seriously underestimating the consequences. If that's the case, one would imagine that the prankster got more than they bargained for when all 80 of his coworkers ended up in the hospital, allegedly. A third possibility is that it was an act of an outsider or onlooker not directly tied to the crew or caterers, one that somehow was able to slip by security into the set and just decided for whatever reason to dump a pound of PCP into the nearest thing they saw, which was Chowder. Now, that seems far less likely, but it could be. Despite an exhaustive investigation that stretched on for over 2 years, the Nova Scotia authorities hit a dead end. They interviewed dozens of people and even kept the case open long after Titanic had left town, but no clear evidence one way or the other ever surfaced. Finally, on February 12, 1999, Halifax police closed the case without an arrest, citing a complete lack of suspects or leads. The identity of the Chowder saboteur remained an unsolved mystery to this day, a real cold case. In the end, everyone recovered. Titanic finished filming without further incident, but the story of PCP-laced chowder would enter film industry lore. It's the kind of unbelievable behind-the-scenes tale that gets told over dinner parties on film sets. James Cameron himself has somewhat taken a cheeky view of it in hindsight. With a few decades of distance, he can now afford to joke. And one of his favorite quips is to pretend that he's solved the mystery by teasingly accusing his now wife, Susie Amos, who had a small role in Titanic before they were ever together, of being behind the poisoning herself, since she was one of the few who skipped the chowder that night and stayed sober. Of course, he will later clarify he is only kidding. He knows that his wife had nothing to do with it, but he just thinks it's funny to give her a good old-fashioned ribbing, some old-fashioned folks might say. And others who were there have also reflected on the incident with a mix of horror and humor. Marilyn McAvoy, who we quoted from earlier, she's given several interviews about this. And she later said, quote, "We're left with nothing but the raucous tale of one of Hollywood's great illicit mysteries," end quote. By the time Titanic hit theaters in late 1997 and went on to all the glory it would amass, the Chowder incident was a behind-the-scenes footnote, rarely mentioned in public at the time, since the studio and producers were understandably very tight-lipped about the incident and likely, although it's not proven, paid for PR stories to cover it up. But over the years, the story got leaked out and grew into the stuff of Hollywood legend. To this day, we still don't know who spiked the chowder or why. It remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries. And I am going to send you an interview that was given in 2023, so just 2 years ago, where James Cameron talked with a man named Tom Power, who has a podcast. His show is called Q with Tom Power. You can find him on YouTube. And if you skip to 7 minutes and 23 seconds, he asks James Cameron about the PCP chowder.
I wanted to ask you something that it's been in the news recently, but like I always knew it as East Coast lore, like coming from Newfoundland. I had heard this urban legend growing up, and I've heard it in the news recently. I wanted to ask you about it, which is the story that like while you were filming in Dartmouth and Nova Scotia, the chowder got laced with PCP. This is true?
This is a 100% true story. Let me tell you, you haven't lived until you've been high on PCP, which, by the way, I do not recommend to anyone, even stoners. There was a little tiny hospital in, I think it was Dartmouth, with like 85 crew members.
Yeah.
You know, so the hospital, I mean, there was an emergency room with no one in it and like a nurse, and 85 crew members walk in. You know, we don't know. We think we've had shellfish poisoning, like, you know, neural shellfish poisoning that kills you, like, you know, and we walk in, we don't know what's going on. And basically somebody had taken a pound of PCP and dumped it into the chowder.
Why?
And we have a pretty strong suspicion who it was, although it was never proven. We believe the story is that it was somebody who had a beef with the caterers, because the first thing we did was fire the caterers, right? When we recovered, you know, the next day. You know, sure enough, we had some leads on that. Of course, the operant theory was that I was such a psychomaniac that they were trying to get back at me, but I reject that theory out of hand for obvious reasons.
How did that guy get James Cameron on his podcast? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the reason why this story has recently been making the rounds through Reddit is because in 2024, Global News, which is a news media organization, were able to get some of the documents from the original police investigation given to them, basically. Like whatever the FOIA request equivalent is in Canada, they got some of these papers. It's redacted. There's a lot of redactions, like people's names and specifics are redacted to protect their privacy. But that's, I think, why people are now so interested in it, because it used to just be an urban legend. You know what I mean? Like, hey, did you hear about the time everyone got drugged with PCP, with a pound of PCP and chowder on the set of Titanic? And everyone's like, sure, for sure, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. But then it was kind of confirmed, not only in these subsequent interviews, but also the original police investigation documents got released to the public. So kind of interesting. And that
interesting.
is the story of the PCP Chowder conspiracy. To kind of finish this episode, I just wanted to point out some quick bullet points because the story of the PCP Chowder conspiracy isn't the only zany haunting to come out of the filming of the Titanic. There are also some more traditional hauntings rumored to have taken place on set. For example, some crew members reported that James Cameron was very superstitious during the filming. The fact that the real Titanic tragedy had claimed over 1,500 lives gave many people a general feeling of unease while recreating it, especially on the highly realistic sets built for the movie. There were rumors that Cameron discouraged certain jokes or disrespectful behavior on set, allegedly out of concern that bad luck might follow them if they didn't show respect to the real-life victims. Also, the massive 17 million gallon tank built in Baja, Mexico for the sinking scene was a super high-stress environment. Some crew members, including extras, later told outlets like Vanity Fair and Entertainment Weekly that while filming night shoots in the freezing water, they felt, quote, watched. And some even claimed to hear strange whispers as they were sitting in the frozen water, like completely silent, just like shivering, waiting for the next scene to hit. Like they could hear like around their ears. And one extra reportedly told a fellow background actor that she saw ghostly shadows moving under the surface of the water during a long shoot one night, that she could see like these disembodied shadow people down below the water, just like swimming around underneath her. And it was nobody from the cast and crew, which like gives me the heebie-jeebies as someone with submechanophobia. And the rebuilt third-class cabins designed to match archival photographs of the real ship were so detailed that some cast members later said that they kind of felt like they had been transported back in time while filling those spaces, and that they could hear phantom footsteps or voices of like old-timey people calling to each other down the hallways of these cabins during times that nobody else was nearby. It was like all quiet on set, and then they're waiting for something to happen, and then they hear like somebody screaming down the hallway, like, help me, or get to the lifeboat, or whatever, just like creepy shit. And then they would be like, did you hear that? And everyone would be like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But multiple people were hearing weird disembodied screams during different times. And there are even unconfirmed internet rumors that some props used during the filmmaking, like ship wheels or porthole frames or reconstructed like life vests that were made for the movie. The rumors state that some of these props, especially the ones that looked more lifelike, were scavenged from real shipwrecks or older decommissioned vessels. And though there's no official record of any of that being true, some people that worked on the set were like, no, I was told that this is like a porthole from a ship that sank in one of the Great Lakes, or like a ship that wrecked and somebody died. And like, because James Cameron was famously a perfectionist. And so they were like, yeah, he wanted it to be so period appropriate that like some of these artifacts are real. And a persistent but unverified rumor claims that Kate Winslet once refused to enter her dressing room because she thought that something was quote unquote off in the dressing room one night, that like she could feel a presence that gave her a really bad feeling. But she has never confirmed this publicly. This was like a runner that was working on set that Kate Winslet was like, there's something in my dressing room, I don't want to go in there tonight. And so they had to get her a different room, allegedly. And the Titanic set, which was in Rosarito in Baja California in Mexico, it's really weird. So they built this giant set, and then according to the guy who owned the property, they just fucking abandoned it. Like they wrecked it. They drove through these like bulldozers and wrecking balls and stuff and just like smashed and demolished the set. But when he came back to his property, because he wasn't allowed to be on set at the time, there was just wreckage strewn all about his property. And he called James Cameron or whoever he was put in contact with who booked the shoot on his property and was like, you guys have to come back. Like, this is fucked up. I can't clean this by myself. And he was basically told to go fuck himself, apparently. And so there's still wreckage there today. I will send you a Reddit link to what you can see. And the guy tried to make money off of it by like having it be advertised as a tourist spot. But over the years, people aren't really interested as they were in the late 90s to go visit this set because it doesn't look like anything. It just looks like a garbage heap.
Right.
And so
Come
it's
take
just
a picture with this garbage.
literally, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it literally, oh my God. It just looks like a
It looks
bunch
like Ground Zero.
yeah, like a pile of just like demolished tanks and like metal stuff. Yeah, it's like scrap metal everywhere. Wow.
Yeah, and like particle board that was painted to look like real, whatever it's supposed to be, like looks like a beam, but it's actually particle board. But yeah, it's just so much that he can't clean it up himself. He can't afford to do it. And whatever they paid him was like not enough to do it. So it's just kind of like useless property now, which is really sad, according to him, and I'm sure the production would be like, no, that's not true. But that's what he says. And it's his property. And it looks like that.
Set it all on fire, bruh.
Yeah.
Set it on fire.
And then some people that have gone down to the location in Mexico, because this guy is just like trying to sell tickets to make back any money he can because his property is useless now, have salvaged or scavenged different props from the movie set. And people have posted about them on Reddit. There's like a whole Imgur link or Imager link, I always say that wrong, of different life jackets that people took from the set and are like now selling on eBay. A stuntman saved his jacket and sold it with like an authentication certificate that says how he got it and whatever. And some people say that these kind of weird props are haunted, that like you can hear strange whispers at night. Some people with the props have said that they can hear the sound of like water rushing in at night. And then they're like, what the fuck is that? And they spring out of their beds and nothing is wrong. So it was definitely a very, very haunted film set. But the most haunted and fun, I think, is this weird unsolved mystery of who the fuck dumped a pound of PCP into the lobster chowder on the last day of filming in Nova Scotia? So the theories are, theory number one, it was just an accident. Now, I don't know how you could accidentally mix a pound of PCP into chowder. Theory number two is that it was mischief. Maybe someone was just trying to get everyone high to have a good time on the last night of shooting and was a really chaotic person and did not think through what they were doing. And then theory number three is that it was malicious. Somebody was really mad and wanted to cause havoc. And there's even a small conspiracy. Some people think that since the film was so far over budget by this point, that maybe someone involved in production wanted there to be some sort of weird tragedy that they could blame on a third party to, like I said, recoup some money by filing a claim against insurance or by suing a third-party catering company and maybe having them pay out from their insurance. So there is a small conspiracy there as well, but officially it has never been solved. Nat, what do you think?
I love this episode. This is like the perfect Let's Get Haunted episode to me because it was so chaotic. It has mystery involved. We went on tangents. Also, it's got drugs and haunting. I mean, this episode literally had everything. And thank you so much for sharing it with us. I don't know what to think. I think the thing I'm most baffled by is that Leonardo DiCaprio says he's never done any drugs. That's the thing how are you going to go do Gilbert Grape? Come on, man.
Maybe he's just that good though,
Were his parents like hippies though?
But that's why he says he never did drugs, because he was around it so much, living on hippie compounds and stuff, that he just never had any interest.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely very, very good.
Well, which theory do you think you believe?
Number two, that it was mischief. I don't think someone would maliciously put PCP in the chowder, because I feel like if you were going to be malicious, there's so much easier ways to do it,
Right. Yeah, that's true. Maybe somebody just happened upon a bag of PCP. I don't know. I was kind of thinking that people who do PCP are not well known for being
Staple.
mentally all there, right? Like what the symptoms are. Oh, we didn't even talk about what PCP is, but guys, it's a drug. It's a hallucinogen. People abuse it. Some of the symptoms include memory loss, severe hallucinations, like you think you're in another location or you think some fake scenarios happening to you. People's brains get really hot when they do it. Like if you overdose on it, you can for sure die. It's not great. Yeah, maybe someone just like found it. I don't know. Like, and just was like, oh, I've done a little bit of PCP before, like that chaotic guy who was described as like really big, dancing around doing a jig, telling people like, this is for sure PCP. Like, I don't know, maybe he thought it would be fun or funny and somehow happened upon a giant bag of PCP, and some people had fun. There was a conga line, there was wheelchair races. Like some people were having a good time and nobody ever got caught. So it was kind of successful. Who is to say, as we often say on this show?
While we were filming this, I just got a text from an unknown number of someone saying, "Is this Michael?" And I hope this is not related to this guy that was at my house earlier. I'm not going to say anything back. It's probably a scam, but maybe.
Thoughts and prayers, guys. Keep that in your thoughts and prayers.
BRB, gonna go leave a bunch of wreckage of a fake shipwreck on someone's property in Nova Scotia. Bye!
Welcome to the closing credits for episode 223, the PCP Chowder conspiracy of the Titanic, the movie. I'm not really sure what the title of this episode is going to be yet, but welcome to closing credits. This month, we would love to give a warm, heartfelt thank you to our Patreon donors who donated to us in the month of April 2025. Letters I through N. And if you'd like to become a donor and hear your name shouted out on a future episode, head over to patreon.com/letsgethaunted, where you will not only get a shout out, but you'll also get access to episode extras, minisodes, personal hauntings, live streams, and much, much more. This week, we'd like to thank Ileana RN, Inky Pop Art, It's Calcifer, Ivan L, Jackie L, Jacob, JDKP, Jameet, Jamie F, Jamie P, Jasmine B, Jasmine C, Jason G, JM, Jamie L, Jen M, Jenna M, Jennifer C, Jennifer W, Jenny B, Jenny Squiddy, Jesselyn, Joey and Jesse, Joanna H, Joanna H, Joaquin E, Jocelyn, Johan, John H, Jordan C, Jordan F, Jordan L, Jose L. Krampus, Jose P, Jules the Ghoul, Julia C, Julia M, Julie B, Julie C, Juliet H, Justin M, Justine D, Kate M, Karen H, Karen K, Karina C, Carly K, Carly M, Kat, Kat and Alice the Malice, Katie K, Katie Cat, K to the Win, Kayla M, Kayla P, Kayak, Keese P, Kelsey, Kelsey K, Kelsey E, Kelsey L, Kelsey H, Kendra, Kimberly F, Kindred and Amber, Kinsley M, Kittenish Kate, Corky M, Kristen K, Lacey M, Laura the Lauren, Lauren B, Lori, Lowry, Ladybug 979, Leah R 1991, Leanna BC, Lena, Lena, Leonardo P, Lexitronic Lil Dilda, Lily Bones, Lily Bell, Lily Silly, Lindsay M, Lindsay S, Lisa B, Lisa H again, Lisa ML, Lisa R, Lizzie L, Luxury Guinea Pigs. Guinea pigs do deserve luxury, I think, so way to go with that username. Mace of Pentacles, Mad Nej, Madeline, Maddie P, Madison E, Madison M, Maja L, Maja L, McKenna P, Manny, Maria O, Marina W, Mario A, Maris G, Marissa G, Marty F, Mary A, Mateo NL, Matthew L, Matthew M, Maddie Joe, Max M, Mason G, Meg R, Mega Lantern, Megan, McGinnis, Megan N, Mega Red, Megan, Doherty, Melissa B, Melissa G, Melissa H, Mellow 82, Mercy DM, Metal Pineapple, Miami Cat Mom, Michael B, Michael M, Michael S, Michael T, Mikey BDX7, Minnie W, Mo, Molly P, Monica H, Monica R, Morgan D, Mother of Frogs, Mumble, Naji, Naomi RH, Natalie C, Natasha M, Nicholas M, Nikki S, Nicole A, Nicole L, Nicole S, Nikki B, Nilza, Noah and Riley, Noah B, Inexdine, and Nadine. Woo, 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 woo. Pew, 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 pew. I feel like it's been a while since we've had a good old-fashioned laser show. So, lasers. If I figure out how to add stuff in post, I will right here. I'll be shooting off lasers, wearing a hat, and have some fireworks. Just saying this right now, I know future me is going to hate this because I'm going to be editing, like I always am, up to the very last minute, and then the last thing I ever edit is these closing credits, and then I'm going to get to the very end, and I'm going to think I'm almost done. It's going to be so close to midnight, so close to upload time, and then I'm going to see that past me has asked future me to insert a bunch of stuff in post that I don't know how to do. Thank you so much if you listen to the closing credits consistently. It really does mean a lot to Nat and I. I really appreciate everybody who's stuck with us through this season. I want to say that I'm really sorry for the weird audio from this episode. So especially if you listened all the way through to this episode, oh my God, you are amazing. I don't know what happened. We were having technical difficulties. It was really hard to get this episode done, but hopefully it was listenable. Let me know at Let's Get Haunted on Instagram if you got used to the audio or if the audio made you want to end your life, because I mean, there's nothing I can do about it now, I guess, but I paid somebody to go through and try to clean up the audio. You know what? It's not important. It's not important. Stop the excuses. Thank you so much if you listened all the way through. You're amazing. And now it's time for that special time at the end of every episode where we give you a secret password. If you are new to the show and aren't quite sure what the secret password is all about, at the end of the year, we enter every single person who comments the correct secret password on each respective photo dump, because the password changes every episode. We print the names, the Instagram names of every single person who leaves the correct password. Every week, we print all of these names, and then we cut them out. And at the end of the year, Nat does a drawing, and I do a drawing from these buckets of names, and you guys win a prize. It's time for the secret password of the week that you will comment at Let's Get Haunted on the photo dump that corresponds to this week's episode. And that password is "You Subrogated My Heart." Bye, guys. See you next week.